So I think we can probably get started. We won't have Kwa joining in the call today, and I think Jeff probably is just going to call in.
Hey, this is Wei.
Hi, Wei.
Hey, Anu.
He won't be able to get on Ready Talk, and I'm at home, so in the room there we have Trevor Reeling Shouling, from what I understood earlier. Is that again?
Okay. Yeah. Go on sitting next to Shouling.
And on the call, I have Burak, Claudio, Dave, Huni, Ian, Ron, Tim, Wei. Did I miss anybody? Maybe we just give 2 more minutes for. I don't know if everybody has called in yet. So we just wait a couple minutes. Sorry.
Hello.
Hi, Alejandra.
Hi, Anu. This is Tim from CST.
Hi, Tim. We're just waiting for 2 more minutes before we start to let everybody call in. Okay, I think let's get started. I just want to go over the people on the call. Again, Burak, Claudio, Dave, Huni, Ian, Ron, Tim, and Wei and Yuling. Did I miss anybody? Alejandra.
Yes, thanks.
Alejandra, anybody else? Divakar, okay. All right. So I know I sent out the agenda really late. Sorry about that. On the agenda, we talk a little bit about the action items just so that we don't forget about them, and also to get any updates that may be there. And I want to talk briefly about the DataMed UI evaluation that's ongoing right now. And then we can go over inclusion of more repositories into DataMed, which is fairly similar to what we presented at the EC meeting just about an hour ago. And let's also talk briefly about the version 1.5 release, which is scheduled for tomorrow. And Ruling and Shaoling would like to discuss with Burak and Yuling primarily about some metadata issues that they've run into. If time permits, then there are some questions that Alejandra and Philippe have with regard to the data type ontology that they're beginning to work with now. So we can talk about that. One of the action items was to generate a help and FAQ page, and I don't think anything much has been done in that area. So please do start adding materials here. I'm hoping that once the release is done, then most of us would have a little bit more time to get in there and add material, and we can update the website. Claudio and Jeff are working on being able to host BioCaddy and /DataMed on a more robust server. Claudio, do you have any updates on that?
No updates yet. I have to talk more with Jeff.
Oh, okay. And you all of you saw the video, and I also sent out the link for the video. So if you have feedback on the video, please let us know, because right now the plan is also to use the video to be able to introduce DataMed when we try and disseminate the presence of DataMed everywhere. With the pilot project integration, I have emailed the pilot project folks, and I'm waiting to hear back from them. So once I hear back, I'll forward it to the CDT team. Also, as far as link out, we have Xiaoling generated the files that Kathy wanted to look at, and she sent it to Kathy. And Xiaoling, can you talk briefly about what we need to do?
Kathy replied the email, and one question she asked is what's the relationship with DataMed and SciCrunch, because the example I provide to her, he said the information already in SciCrunch, so that to her it looks like duplicate. So I hadn't replied her yet. I told her that we are busy with the release, so I will get back to her after the release.
Right. I forwarded that email to Jeff, but I guess maybe he hasn't had time to go into it. I will send out.
So anyway, I was just able to jump on. Which email is that?
So Jeff, for the link out, when Xiaoling sent material to Kathy, she was asking what the relationship was between SciCrunch and DataMed.
Yeah, so this is what I brought up on a prior call, that we've provided some link outs.
Right.
Through DKNet and the NIF projects.
So maybe it would be useful to kind of figure out what, because she's saying that some of the material would be duplicates of each other.
They may be duplicate records, but as we discussed on one of the prior calls where we had discussed, the BioCaddy landing page providing, access to similar data sets and all that, they would be different in terms of the content. But that is, that's something we can discuss.
Okay. And since you're on the call, Jeff, I'm probably we can go over this quickly. For the BD2K all hands, do you want me to rearrange and print out the poster?
Yeah, because I thought the poster was the other. At the BD2K meeting, the poster is the other way around, right? It's landscape.
It's a 4x6, I thought. Let me look at it again. I have the guidelines in front of me right now.
Yeah, because last time they had the
yeah.
standard, they had those standard landscape poster boards.
Yeah, it's 4 feet high and it's 6 feet wide. So you're right. It's landscape.
Yeah. So I mean, we can do. We'll flip that, and then what I'll do is, I mean, I usually for the meetings in Bethesda, I just send my poster to get printed at the FedEx right there on whatever the name of that, on Wisconsin Avenue or whatever it is. There's a FedEx right there.
Okay, Jeff. Just remember, we're up at the Bethesda North Marriott.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So you'll take care of the ingestion poster, right?
Yeah.
Because
Ron, I think that's two subway stops.
Yes, that's right. That's right. No, I just want to let you know. Just in case you think you can walk it.
Yeah.
So there's a FedEx up there somewhere as well.
Yeah, I think Ian's right. There's probably one at the hotel there. Just look on their website and see if there's one.
Yeah,
right
I'll look to see who does the printing. I know that the one down on Wisconsin is a pretty big store, so they're usually right on it, and so it's. I've never had any issues with them.
Okay. Anu, is there anything on the steering committee meeting that will take place on the evening of the 28th?
So, yeah, actually, that's what Elizabeth was saying, that they're trying to arrange the steering committee meeting on the evening of 28th.
7 p.m.
7 p.m. But I just looked at my flight. I think Rilling and I will probably land there at 6:30, so I doubt we are going to make it to the hotel on time. But I to be honest, I have no idea what everybody's plan is. So, but I also wanted to talk little bit more about the all hands meeting. Just an FYI for everybody, for the systems demo, they also say we'll have a poster. Space for a poster. So let me just share my screen.
So Anu, for that, for the systems demo, we can have a virtual poster. I have a small short throw projector that I can bring that can just display on the on the poster board. If we want to do something like that, where we can have, we can either display sort of data med, sort of larger for people to see. So I don't know exactly how much space we have.
So for the demo, they're saying it'll be a table, a poster board behind the table, access to the internet and power. That's all they're saying. But I was thinking that with your projector, we would actually play kind of the video if you think it's going to be ready by then. Do you think it'll be ready?
We can have the current whatever the current version that Devin has at that time. Yeah.
So because then we could have the poster. I'm hoping there's going to be a wall on which we could potentially project.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because we could also project onto the poster board folder as an option.
Yeah. Or we could do something like, as you suggest, we could have the video play and have the poster up maybe for 5 or 10 minutes and go through that cycle. So what they also say is that demos are going to be open to all attendees during the entire meeting. but they want us to be there in person from 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday and 2:30 to 4:30 on Wednesday.
This is going to be a very full house, so there will be a lot of opportunity to interact with grantees, other attendees, and NIH staff. So I think what they're looking at is to extend the time available so that you can maximize these interactions.
Right, so maybe we want to ensure that at least one person is there at the demo spot. So Ron, do you know if our demo area and our all the related BioCADI posters are going to be close by?
I haven't seen the floor plan yet. Ian, I don't think we've seen any of that yet. I believe
No, I haven't seen that.
No, I think the latest message we got was that they were in the process of printing up a program book, and I'm guessing that that'll have all of that information in it. In the interim, though, you could contact the contractor and ask some of these questions.
I mean, I know that was requested at some point, though, or I saw it described. Was the request actually sent to anybody concerned with organizing the meeting? Like Soninka or the contractor?
Yeah, there's a contractor's name. I'm looking through my email now to see if I can find it.
It's Capcom.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I can just contact them and see. I'm just wondering if it would be, for us, it would be more convenient to plan if we know a little bit, because we can take turns standing by the demo and the posters just to make sure there's somebody around.
Yeah, I would go ahead, as Ian indicated, the name of the contractor. You should probably have that somewhere in your email inbox as well.
I think so. Yeah, I think in the acceptance it came with the 2 emails that people that we could contact.
Yeah, I would not hesitate to do so.
Okay. Also, they suggested that we should leave the posters up and potentially have the demos up for the Open Data Science Symposium. And I thought that would actually be a good venue for us to have people who are interested in it, check it out.
I agree, and the attendees for that are likely to be a little bit different. There'll be a lot of overlap, but there will be people coming to the Open Science meeting that will not have been at the All Hands meeting.
Okay.
So I just noticed there was an email 11 minutes ago from Abby Smith about final logistics for the BD2K All Hands meeting. So if the information you're looking for is not in there, then following up with Abby is probably a good route.
All right. I guess that's about it for the. So for inclusion of more repositories into DataMed.
The DataMed UI evaluation?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. The DataMed UI evaluation. I just want to. Okay, let me share my screen again, because what we have been following is the Trello, where people have been assigned to different. This is pretty much what we did last time as well. People have been assigned to different areas or different functionalities of the UI that we want them to check, and people are the checking is still ongoing, as you can see, and there are some issues that have come up that Drilling and Shaoling are working on fixing. I did want to ask those of you who haven't had a chance yet to go in and test it, please do. The link to the DataMed, if you click on the first card, you have the link to the testing version, which is basically the DataMed version on the development server. And if you are going there for the first time, it will ask you for a password and username, and it's the same as what we had earlier, which is BioCaddy and BioCaddy. So we hope that all the testing would be completed by the end of the day today, so that Drilling and Shaoling have a little bit of time to ensure that the major issues are all fixed before we release tomorrow. And I've assigned, we have a minimum of at least 2 people in addition to Drilling and Shaoling who are on the cards, you can see. We have a minimum of at least 2 people for each functionality, so that even if something is missed by one person, the other person catches it.
So I seem to be on 2 cards, Anu. Does that sound about right?
Actually, I have, yes, that's right. I have you as EIF, and I also have you as F, and I don't know why I have you as 2 people, 2 different people there. But anyways, wherever I saw that, I put both of them in. So yeah, this sounds about right. I try to distribute. Yeah, you're on the grant support page.
And the about page.
And the about page, yes. And if you think that there's something that we aren't looking at that we've forgotten to put in, please do go ahead and add a card. So any changes are made, we'll get to it immediately.
Okay.
Anu, this is that way.
I
want to know, like, for tomorrow's release, where the people can find the announcement.
So this time we haven't prepared a formal announcement.
Okay.
Is that last time we did prepare a formal announcement, right? But I was planning to actually just announce and say that we have a new release to the same mailing list that we have.
Anu, what we can do on our end is there's a weekly DD2K update that comes out of the ads office. I'm happy to do this, as would Dawei or Ian, is if you would send a brief paragraph announcing the new release with the website, the URL, and maybe 1 or 2 points about what is new. We can forward this to the ads office, and they'll put it out as an announcement.
Okay.
We've certainly talked before about a set of release notes, which is important. I can see, if I look on 1.5, I can see there's a list there of new features, certainly.
I don't think that's probably not updated yet, Ian. I have to go in and update it. I think those are the new features that were there for version 1 release.
Okay.
And this is on me. I just haven't gotten in there and provided the text for Reeling and Shaoling to update this new features.
Right. Well, there's 2 birds here you can kill with 1 stone. If it's going to be updated on there, then something similar is going to fulfill what Ron's talking about.
Right. Anyway, I was planning to draft the release announcement today evening, so that should definitely work.
Yeah, I mean, here you're talking about doubling the number of repositories, doubling the number of data sets, more than doubling. So I think this is important, and you've got a whole list on the November 23rd of new features. This is great stuff, and we need to make sure that our colleagues know about it and that they, in turn, can disseminate this to their contacts. So if you can send us some language that says as much, we'll make sure it gets into this update.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, bearing in mind that this is still a prototype, it's still a work in progress, and
Correct.
most of that is we're looking for feedback. But I mean, that connects to something which I think is very much more specific, though I would hope we're doing as feedback, at least conceptually, right? There are people who have gone on to 1.0 or possibly to earlier versions, and they've looked at it and they've provided feedback on some kind of issue. For example, they've either posted something into GitHub directly, or they've provided feedback through the application. And 1.5, in some sense, addresses the things that they've raised. So if we can be responding to those people who've raised an issue and say, hey, you pointed this out, we believe we fixed it, please look at 1.5 and, you know, is it now fixed? And to close the loop with people who've raised issues previously.
Okay. So we have been contacting users, and whenever we had issues in GitHub, though, but we can do that again.
Yeah, I think Ian's hit on a very important point. We want to be seen by the community as responsive. And as we all know, this is still in development, but we're able, the developers are able to respond to issues that are raised and identified by the community. And this is also a way of ensuring that people are going to come back.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions with regard to the testing?
Not at this point.
Okay. So this is just a list of what all the three teams are doing and what we are working on. In terms of mapping, we have, I think, all the previous repositories have been mapped now to DATS 2.1. Some of them are still getting indexed. But for the, we also have about 20 new repositories that have been ingested and indexed, and this also tells you what the three groups are planning to work on and have up in the pipeline in terms of repositories. This is just talking about the ingestion, and I know that Eunice's team has run into some problems with ingesting gene network and HMP. So they are trying to figure it out, and we are still working on ingesting these 4 repositories, and we have our pipeline also decided. So one of the things that I wanted to ask about was this Candida genome database. This is a database where they are providing what they call data sets which are basically tables and Excel spreadsheets that are available from literature. And so they're pulling all of that out, and they provide a link to the paper and also provide all the tables and Excel spreadsheets and any other supplementary information as a data set that's associated with that particular table. So I wonder if this is something that we really want to pull into. It's not a traditional data set.
So let me understand, from what you're describing, the sense in which I think you might mean it's not a traditional data set. I mean, it sounds, what you've described is what they're pulling in is the tables out of the paper.
Right.
So those might be, right, those certainly aren't raw data, right? They're going to be summarized data, statistics. They might be means and standard deviations, or means and standard errors, or etc. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And some of them also have, like, some papers do submit the raw data as Excel spreadsheets, right? Which are provided as supplementary data. Or any other kind. I mean, using Excel spreadsheets.
I mean, I would be inclined to say yes, they're data. But that's more of an inclusive. I would see that might be more of an inclusive definition than some people might want if they were looking at something more specific. I mean, I would say to give a better answer, it's a case of looking at the source that you're talking about. What did you say it's called? Candida?
It's called Candida Genome Database.
Okay. Well,
so,
I mean, I would have hoped, I mean, this is something, Anu, that I would have hoped that our prioritization process, right, essentially the process that came out of Working Group 9,
right,
and which is summarized in that spreadsheet that George is producing and updating, that's the stage at which a question like that should be being considered. And
right.
To me, the important output from this is not the specific answer with regard to that particular database, but the important answer here is about that review process and what skill set is necessary to do that review process and what should be being looked at. I think, by the by, we do want a decision about that database. But I think there's that bigger question, for this to be informative to NIH, we want to know, well, what if you're looking at databases and you're prioritizing them, and what do you need to think about when you're looking at a repository?
To put it another way, what Ian is pointing out is that what we're looking at is, as this develops, as the prototype further develops, we want to be able to tell the community what are the processes, the SOPs, the work flows that were used in prioritization, and how consistently they were applied and how successful they were at the end of the pipeline.
Okay. Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. So I will, actually, I'm the one who's been updating the list of repositories there, so I'll put that in, and we'll see how the prioritization comes up.
I mean, right, and, well, I mean, I'm sure there is a criterion in that list that this should probably come under, but it's more a question of how those criteria being implemented, and what we're getting right now, I think, is a score on each of those criteria, but I don't think we're seeing any of the detail about how did somebody decide that was the right score.
What I do know is Sandra has been going through the repositories, and earlier she was putting in GitHub, where you have the managed repositories repo under the BioCaddy GitHub, and she was putting in the information that she had pulled in about the repository. To be honest, I am not sure if she's still doing that for the other repositories that she's been looking at. We can check that out very quickly. Probably not. Yeah, I think this is only for those repositories that have been submitted via the Submit Repository tab. She hasn't. Maybe we could ask for her. She has been preparing. She had prepared for all the the repositories that came directly via submission. She had prepared kind of a document which has all the information per the criteria that we're talking about. So maybe we can ask her to put all the information for all the repositories in there, and provide links. We can link up from the spreadsheet to there. So if people are interested in going in to see how the decision was made, it could be put in there, and it's available to anybody who wants to see it. The other question I do have is for Jeff and Yuling and Burak. So I saw from the data site biomedical repositories that we are pulling in, there are overlaps. Like, for example, import and SimTK are also being are being considered for ingestion directly, right?
Yeah. So, and this is for example, the import in SimTK, we're still working with import to figure out if there's a sort of a deeper way to get the data. But in the meanwhile, we do have the data site import that we can use right now.
Oh, I see. So
it depends what happens with import and the sort of the deeper registration to see if we get anything from that. But that's one of the resources we've been in contact with.
So then, if we get a better or more extensive metadata, then we will simply replace.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Okay, and the same could be for any of those that we pulled in through DataSite. We are going to replace them with the direct one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there are that many that are sort of in both places right now. I mean, because a lot of them, don't generate DOIs for all their data products, right? So it's only for those that generate the digital object identifiers, where it will be in multiple places.
So the other question I have is, if we want to classify these repositories by data type, I don't know exactly how we're going to do it. Like, for example, Picshare and Zenodo.
Because the overall repository. So Figshare, that's owned by Nature and Macmillan, right? So that's one of their big places where they're requesting people to place their data. And same thing for Zenodo. I mean, there's no it's a general purpose repository, just like
exactly.
Dryad.
Yeah.
So that's one area where we may have to look at, potentially, in the future we could develop, something that can actually extract information from the data record to try and classify it. I mean, that's something we can always talk about if there is the ability to develop some sort of classifier like that. But right now, I think we've been classifying those general purpose repositories as other.
Yeah, as
it's not
unspecified.
Yeah.
That's what we've been saying, unspecified, but then our unspecified list. So any repository that has more than one kind of data in it, we're saying is unspecified, but the list just keeps growing in that. So, and that's not very useful when we are searching, right?
Yeah, I know, and there are quite a few of them. That are unspecified that we haven't even approached yet. So that's
Okay.
Hi, Anu. Actually, I have two things to discuss about the new repositories.
Right.
Very quickly.
Uh-huh.
So BioLink. BioLink doesn't have any well-documented metadata or API or downloadable data set unless we provide the justification for each data set why we need to download it. So we contacted BioLink, and they confirmed that they do not have any metadata documentation or API, but they are kind of curious what BioCAD is doing, and they are willing to have a meeting with us and discuss whether they can share the data set with us openly. So I don't know. I mean,
this is something we should be following up with them at NIH.
Right.
I mean, I think a meeting of the kind you're talking about would be good, but I think some of us should be involved in that. I mean, I had some discussions with the BioLink people going back a number of years, more to do with biospecimens than about data resources, but I've got some awareness of what they have in terms of data sources. And to me, it's kind of an obvious thing to do, just to be listing the data sets that they have. So if from their perspective are questions about why we might want to do that, in some ways I can see I'm very surprised. They're at NIH. Why don't they know about the DICC, and don't they have people involved in BD2K? So I think it would, for those reasons, it would be helpful to have somebody involved in the conversation.
Yeah, so I agree. So I also thought that the meeting has to be done at the more higher level. So who should I invite for this meeting, or should I even bother to?
I mean, I can take it on to follow up. I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and
okay.
You know, there's the Framingham study cohort. Why would? And I don't understand when they say they don't have a metadata model, because everything we're looking at here is metadata. So I suspect there's a breakdown in communication of some kind.
Okay.
So Huni, I can help if you want to set up the meeting and to maybe make sure that you have appropriate people on the call.
Okay. So I also have a question about GTEx. I mean, they provide everything that we need, but one problem is that GTEx is also cross-linked to dbGaP as well, and maybe SRA. So do we still want to index that, or?
I mean, we have in the past, and we've just put additional information on distributions that may be primary to, for example, dbGaP.
Okay.
And so there's in the distribution section, that's where we can annotate that.
Okay. Just wanted to confirm. Okay. That's it.
Thank you, Huni.
One general point about this, and If you want specifics on it, look at the comments that I made about indexing TCGA. But the general point is, in our in our effort to index more and more repositories, my question is as we have a process, we go and look at the metadata for a given repository. We look at how the mapping is done. New code is written if necessary. My question is where amongst that sort of step of things is the testing of adding that repository? Because if I look at TCGA, my question is, why did we index it that way? Because that doesn't seem the right way to index TCGA. So, two things. One is maybe we need to be looking at who's involved and how we index a repository. But the bottom line is, what testing mechanism do we have to catch issues as each repository is indexed? I mean, is there a specific, do we say, we've done this, now let's test it, and let's check that what we've done gives sensible results? And who do we involve in that question?
I mean, I think on the sort of the syntactic side, there's, we do tests, for example, on, are the land, do we direct people to the correct landing page? And I know that's something that, for example, that Ruling is doing as well, so that we get feedback there. But I think, Ian, what you're getting to is sort of a deeper question, not just on the syntactic representation, but the
in some ways,
the higher level view of a data set, if it,
Well, what it comes down to, is I know TCGA pretty well as a study that looked at the two diseases. And if I go and search on that disease name, which is my sort of, how should I search TCGA data in BioCaddy? That's the obvious thing to me. And it seems that the data is not even indexed by the disease. So that's an example of things that we need to pick up somewhere along the line.
I guess the person who would have to test it would have to be somebody who has domain knowledge, right? Sufficient domain knowledge to figure out, okay, if that's a user, then if this is the way it is, it needs to be indexed for it to make sense to a user. And I do not know that we have many such people on the team right now who have that kind of domain knowledge.
Right, but in my mind, when we have talked about, when we index these repositories, we have to do it in conjunction with the people who own the repositories. And I think one of the, maybe I wasn't being explicit enough about it, but one of the reasons for doing that is they're the people who are going to be able to say, yes, this makes the way our repository shows up in BioCaddy is making sense. And this is the way we would like people to be finding their way to our data from BioCaddy, from DataMed.
So is that part of the standard operating procedure here, that is checking with the people who actually own the repositories to be sure that both parties agree that this is being done in a useful way?
I don't think we are necessarily going back to every repository to find out if our mapping is done correctly, if what we are displaying is correct as far as their repository information is, or the dataset information is. We're not doing that. And I can see a downside to it as well. Many times, even with people that we have kind of who have shown interest in being indexed and have actually entered information into ours, they're not always very responsive. So when you're trying to increase the content of the index, and then you end up waiting for a long time for people to respond back to you. I mean, I see what Ian and Ron you're saying, and I agree that would be the best case. But for example, with SimCK, I mean, and also with UPath DB, we've had to prod them quite a bit before we actually got a response. So, that's probably why, because UPath DB is something that we had looked at about 3-4 months ago. And it took quite a long time for us to get any kind of, to get a response back from them.
Right.
So if we are waiting to hear back and for them to approve things, I wonder if our indexing process itself would slow down a lot.
Yeah, no, these are all valid questions and valid concerns. I wonder if this might need a little bit of internal discussion offline, and maybe some thought about how it might be possible to accomplish this kind of double checking, and then we can address it at a future meeting.
Yeah, I mean, one potential way to address it is to provide sort of a feedback form for repositories, because again, some repositories, are now being brought in through more generic mechanisms, for mappings, that are being provided by sort of resource brokers, so DataCite, and then OmicsDI, which is currently being worked on. And so, in that sense, we don't have, we're not communicating either directly with, the repository, because we're going through a broker. But, if we had a feedback form, and a standard sort of contact letter that we could send out to repositories, asking them, that would allow us to, for us to sort of introduce BioCaddy perhaps to some of these repositories that don't know BioCaddy, but also provide a mechanism of feedback for them. So if they do provide feedback, that's great, but it's, it's a simple method that won't, take a lot of spinning of wheels to try and get feedback maybe when, when there's, no time on the other side. So that might be a way to engage some of the repositories.
But I think there's a pressure here, which I think I'm hearing from both Anu from JEP and JEP in terms of around time and speed. I mean, the way Anu's putting it is this will slow up the indexing of repositories. Well, to be honest with you, that's part of the message here. We need to slow down, because we're doing it at this rate, and the end result is repositories indexed in a way that doesn't give sensible results. Then we need to address that, because that's going to there's a cost of going too fast with an unsatisfactory result. I'm not saying that the challenges that you're describing aren't real, but we've got to take those challenges on. And again, this is something that that NIH needs to understand about. If you're going to index things in this way, remember, we're talking about an ecosystem, and this is beginning to tell us something about a kind of communication that needs to happen in an ecosystem to provide an effective data discovery index. It may tell us something about the deal that needs to be done and the expectations about this interaction between BioCaddy and the repositories.
to amplify that, again, as was said earlier, this is a development phase. It is a prototype, and we're still learning. And these kinds of issues that arise help us to learn and will help the NIH in the future as it thinks about this all-encompassing or future indexing ecosystem. So the key at this point is to get it right and make sure that whatever is put out there is indeed usable, because that's the only way we're going to get community feedback and community buy-in to an indexing ecosystem.
Yeah, this is that way. I feel this topic is probably more appropriate to talk about at the steering committee meeting, and to see what that committee said. And that can be maybe one of the topics of the coming meeting.
I think it may need reinforcing there, Darway, certainly, yeah.
Yeah, but either way, I think this ought to be an action item for some thought, consideration, and perhaps exchange of ideas, and then brought up again at our next core development team meeting.
So should I can let Elizabeth know that this may be something that we want to discuss in the next steering committee meeting?
I think this time yet, she's not going to call for the, the next steering committee meeting is going to be next week at the all-hands meeting, and I think our plate is going to be pretty full there.
Well, I think probably we also need to think about how to use the steering committee. You know, we don't have to let the steering committee decide every month. You know, this something is pretty directional. I don't think, just involve technical people here is sufficient. I think probably it's better for somebody in the team to propose a plan and then ask for the opinions from steering committee.
Dawei is right in that the final arbiter of and decision-making body is the steering committee. However, I think we're all agreeing that we need more facts and more thought before going to the steering committee, and it needs to be more clearly thought out.
Okay. So Rulinga and Shaoling wanted to talk about some of the issues that they've been facing with the metadata.
Yeah. So currently in the UI side, we're trying to use a single function to display the data set, which is in DAT 2.1. And I found some problems, like the fields of the metadata is not consistent, like the this should be landing page. That the page is in lower letters. So the different. I think that may be caused by different people doing the mapping. So we should have some agreement on how we name the field. So that will be easy when we do the display.
Yeah, can we set these up as tickets then in the data pipeline GitHub when you come across that, so that they can be fixed?
Okay.
Because that's probably the best place to add those tickets, because as you mentioned, they should be consistent.
Right. So in the future, when we're mapping, we follow this agreement, then it will be easier.
Yeah, and that's what the big spreadsheet, the DATS 2.x spreadsheet, is about as well. To also collect additional metadata elements, sort of the extensions to DATS as we come across them.
Okay. Anu, next.
Yeah.
Also, some reported have PMID information, but some have the PMID column and the number, and some only have the number. So these should also be consistent. Some of the assessed URI in the data set distribution it's not working. So right now, in the display item page, when we provide a hyperlink to this access URI, but when we test it, we found that for of the repository, the access URI is not working. So for tomorrow release, we may right now hide the hyperlink or hide the field, but it's better we get it correct.
I think I hyperlinked these. Sorry, just to clarify, hyperlinked these terms, but when the conversion happened, it converted it into a PDF, and I can't access it anymore. Sorry about that.
Oh.
Yeah, and again, I mean, we should probably again add these to the GitHub, as issues that can be then addressed. Because I mean, we are going to find some of these, and sometimes what might happen is that for example, the landing pages is that if they're from what seems to be potentially one construct, there might be multiple constructs, and sometimes that's not caught when curators go through sort of a sample set of data from a resource. So, we should definitely add those to GitHub.
Okay. Yeah, and the last one is for the YPED, the ID field is not correct. It's the same as the title field. So I will add that to the GitHub too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we are kind of running over time right now. So unless the only other thing that we had wanted to talk about, but this could probably wait until the week after next. Is it okay if we talk about it in the next meeting, Philippe and Alejandra? Or would you rather we discuss it quickly right now and get back to it again?
Well, the main question was also if we could get, given the transformation files, we've seen that you are mapping data types. And for example, in DataMet in the version 1.5, there are 12 data types. So the question was if we could get the full list of data types you are collecting, or if it is only those 12 that are shown at the moment.
So whatever the repositories are sending us in as data types is not being used right now. But I think Shaolin had made a kind of a list of data types that you pull it from
the spreadsheet you shared before, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but is that we were wondering basically if from the ingestion process we could get, or if that's the list. If that's the list, it's actually not too long. But we were thinking that maybe in the repositories themselves there is more, because we want to have, well, a clear idea of all the elements we need to consider to then be able to classify them in a hierarchy and design the ontology, which of course will be an application ontology, choosing existing ontologies where possible.
But I would add as well that to that probably from the ingester into the pipeline, when elements are mapped from a resource to that data type, the range of values that you will get from those repositories, I have in mind, for instance, Geo or SRA, will be extremely large. It won't be only just gene expression, unless it's set in the pipeline. But I don't remember if that's the case. But I guess we can follow up by email and over the next 2 weeks on that issue. We don't have to tackle it right now, as we have reached already an hour. But I just wanted to touch base on that particular issue, just to be so everyone is aware of that.
Okay. And I also, I think we probably should start talking about this as we start testing. The date, not just the UI, but also the returned results, right? And whether the facets are useful or not. So maybe for some of these, some information from the usability studies would be relevant.
Exactly, yes. And also because we wanted to understand what was the kind of synonym cloud that was maintained by the search engine or by the semantic framework that is behind some of the search functionalities available in DataMed.
I think we do have some documentation, but we probably, I don't know that we've had anybody complain so far about data types, but I think you're right. We can start providing you all the links and any other values that we come across when we are ingesting. So maybe we can take this, we can initiate an email conversation about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, please.
Okay.
So also for next time, so that we finish now, but then you mentioned also metadata problems in the agenda, so maybe you can also follow up with that.
Oh, this is just the whatever we talked about. So when, where they were seeing
okay, yeah.
Not very it's one thing that I did want to ask is in the metadata model, maybe we need to put that in. In the metadata model, we don't have a field that describes geographical location, right, of where the data set was generated, maybe? Is that right, really?
Yes, I think.
We don't have that geographic information in the metadata now.
The reason we're talking about this is because Xiaochen, who's working on the supplement project between us and Lynx, was asking because they are interested in kind of providing a visual of where the data sets were generated or are available, and he wanted some repositories that provide this information. And we were able to find a couple of repositories that did have it, but not many.
Yeah, sure. This is something we can add. Yeah.
So maybe this is something that we can put into GitHub as well.
So I guess part of the issue here might be that our terminology server probably doesn't cover data types, right? Like I'm not sure that I've looked for a terminology that would cover sort of synonyms or like I think we have a sort of taxonomic structure of data types that we found, but this is more of an issue of how they're expressed, right? Like each data type might have many variants in the way that they're expressed, and this might not be a problem that has been tackled before because it's specific to data set indexing. So to tackle it, we'd have to find a way to discover terms that describe the same sorts of data sets, I guess.
So I think in terms of some of the data repositories that we looked at when they were talking about the data types were primarily actually talking about data formats and not really data types. So
right. I do remember that, this is an issue that came up with the competency questions, right, where some of the competency questions said things like find expression data and whatnot, and we were thinking at the time that if we had a taxonomy that it might help, but this almost goes beyond that. It's like just the taxonomy won't help because we also need the synonyms of the various elements in the taxonomy to sort of search.
Yeah.
I think those are 2 pain points.
Okay, so let's continue the discussion offline, and also a reminder that we won't have the meeting next week. We'll meet again the week after. Is there anything else that we need to talk about before we are done with the meeting? If not, then thank you very much.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Damn.